Hello and welcome to Explosive Colonisation. This is just my follow-on from Kerbal Quest. We are upgrading between the last version of Kerbal Space Program 1.2.2, upgrading to 1.3 in the middle of this video. So I'm just sort of showing how I get there and the last little stages between that and the new one, and also showing you what I actually have going on at the beginning. So we have this station here, the scrap heap station. We have a couple of others that I'll show you, a couple of other things that I'll show you. But what's happened, and the reason I've renamed this series, is mainly because I have stopped using the Carbonite mod. I had a lot of mods that were doing all different things and all different conflicts, and there's been a little bit of an ongoing thing to try and cut out mods that were causing issues. I switched over from USILS, which is a brilliant life support system, but I swapped over from that to TAC life support because TAC is actually nowadays less complicated than USILS, and it's more compatible with a lot of mods because of the time mechanism that USI has, where people can only spend a certain amount of time in certain ships, and a lot of the mods I use aren't integrated well for that. So I just figured that I would upgrade that, and then I started to get a little bit better frame rate, and I decided to push it further and further and further. And one of the things I knew that caused a lot of my load up errors, not load up errors but load up lag at the beginning, my original load up was 15 minutes long and I'm loading off a solid state drive. So one of the things that was causing that was actually USI tools, because it integrates with so many mods in so many different ways. So Rover Dudes mods are absolutely brilliant. I absolutely recommend them. I just don't use them at the moment. I probably will in the future, but for the moment this is how I'm sort of set up and running. So here we're just deorbiting space plane that had a bit of science equipment in it, so that I can deorbit the actual back arm of this station. It was something that came from one of the older stations, and I'm just bringing it down so the scrap heap's in a pure form for the swap over to 1.3. Now, just here, I'm just pulling the last bit of the science and moving the science across to the main science station, and then undocking our last little mod. There's a section in this that is from one of the mods I'm deleting, so it was causing the ship to delete when I upgraded the save. If you're going to do this, then create 2 copies of the game, and the way that I do it is literally to load it up in the new version or with the new mods, however you wish to do it, and then check once you load it up in the separate game, you can see what's being deleted. You just copy your save across. And literally the centre core of this structure here, this section, was what was being deleted because of taking out the station parts expansion mod. It's a very good mod. Again, a lot of these are brilliant mods. The only reason I'm taking them out is because they're extra parts that load up, and I don't use them anymore. Station parts expansion is something that integrates very well with USILS, but because I don't have that installed, I can make smaller ships that, although they're still big enough and they're still fairly accurate, they're not stupidly huge for what I'm doing, which allows me to load up things faster. So now that's all gone, there was a little switch there. I'm now in 1.3. Anybody that's seen the old playthrough will recognise there's a rover missing here. It was one of the things that got deleted. There was a bit of an issue with one of the mods. It's gone. I expected it. I disconnected all the little sections just to make sure. So I just do a little bit at Tent City on Minmus to check it, and then I go to this little rover just to gather a bit of science. One of the things I'm looking for is science to unlock the last section of the tech tree, the community tech tree I'm using. It has the Alcubierre drive, which is a faster than light drive, which will give me a lot of access, fairly quick access to a few different places at certain times. There's a very interesting way of using it, which I'll get to once I unlock it. But for the moment I need the science, so with that little explosion I'm still moving this rover down so that I can grab as much as possible from different biomes on Minmus. As you can see, I'm just heading for the flats there to gather a bit of science, and I'm still using the science mod to transfer it back to our base. one of the other little base on Minmus. It's one of my little sort of standard footprints that I use and send out to different places now. This is using the K&K Planetary Base Systems. That's the name of the mod. Couldn't remember it there. And then here we have the Infinity. This is one of the space stations, one of the spaceships that I'm using. The little extended arms you can see there are part of the DSEV mod, as are the engines, and most of this. The only part that's really not is the giant fuel tank in the middle, which is part of the cryo tanks mod, which comes with a few different mods from the near future mods. You can also download it on its own from GitHub, which is actually what I did in the beginning, but this has been updated since and it's actually working. So here we go. I decided to land this entire ship on Juna. It was never designed to do this, and this was the first time that I've actually used throttle controlled avionics to do this. But as you can see, it did it brilliantly. It slightly overshot and then it hovered and glid all the way back. The entire time I was absolutely panicked about losing this ship, but it managed absolutely everything. It was brilliant. The only things I did on this was actually switch over the modes of the drive for the engines. These can run on liquid hydrogen, or they run on fusion pellets and water, which gives you a bit of advantage, especially with TAC life support, is that in an emergency you can burn a life support resource to give you a bit of thrust. And as anybody would have noticed at the beginning, I was actually running very shy on Delta V for landing this thing. But this is all automatic. Even the deployment of the gear is automatic. This mod is absolutely brilliant. I can't say enough about it. And there we go, we have landed the Infinity. So now it's got its own drills on board, so we're just going to drill and charge it up. Load it with ore. It's got its own converters for pulling resources. This entire thing was supposed to be, was originally built so that it could land on lighter moons. And the reason it's got a docking port right in the centre is it was supposed to be for pulling loads, so that I could use it to grab a load at Kerbal and pull it all the way out to Juna or even Joule. It does work for that, but I've not actually used it for that yet. Because I had the accident at Dres in the previous series, I decided to send it out there and rescue the guys. So part of the reason for stopping off here is that it has very skilled crew because they've been out to Dres and Minmus. So the crew on the Infinity, I've decided to swap over an engineer. So this is my little engineer who had no skill, and is the reason that the Pathfinder base hasn't been expanded very far, because he can't do much. So I decided to pull our level 4 engineer off of the Infinity and just swap him over. And yes, I know there are ladders that extend. I was just being quite lazy here. And because this thing wasn't expected to land on normal planets, that's why there are no ladders to get in the thing. But after we do this, we just decide to expand the base a little bit and clarify a few little issues I've had with it. So it's going to be expanded a lot further, but at the moment this is a life support base that produces more life support than it uses by quite a way. So while the Infinity is charging up, this base is also going to be supplying it with a little bit of some food specifically. Everything else the Infinity can produce, but food is what it can't produce itself. So there we are, we're just sorting this thing out. So that's us up to date. I have our base on Juna, the Ares base on Juna, the Infinity spaceship which also landed at Juna. We have Tent City and the K&K base, the Planetary Base Systems base, which is out on Minimus, and we have the Scrap Heap station. So that's where I'm starting off. I hope you like this, I hope you follow on and see what I do next. And I'll see you in the next episode.